Well, finding things in nature is more than just plants and animals. There are also clues as to how people lived and worked thousands of years ago. And we learn more in this week's Next to Nature.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Next to Nature this week with Dr. John Long, and another fascinating topic this week to me just because it involves nature, it involves history,
Right.
and it is just arrowheads.
And it's close to bow season.
It is close to bow
So,
season.
very appropriate. But this week we're going to be talking about arrowheads. So, Joey, how old do you think this arrowhead is?
Well, I know the answer because he just told me, but I would have guessed somewhere, probably in the 600-700 range,
Right.
600-700 year range.
Somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 years old.
Wow.
There's somebody sat there and knapped that out. That's what they call making. I can show you that. They take a bone or something sharp, and they would put it on their leg, and they would sit there and just chip it, and they would make that. Now, I would like to say this. The reason we have arrowheads is a caloric intake. So diet is not always this new fad about how many calories you can count or things like that.
Okay.
Early man usually could gather what they ate close by. There was no need for going out and hunt because it was
Okay.
all there. But as that family unit grew, they had to find more food. They had to develop techniques in order to gather that food. Primitive man figured out if you put a stone on the end of a stick, you could launch it a lot further. Animals that they couldn't reach with a club, they could kill at a further range, so hence they developed arrowheads.
Interesting. Now, you also said a lot of this made from flint.
That's right.
I guess I didn't realize maybe a prevalence of flint in Mississippi.
Right. It's quite common, actually.
Ah, there you go.
You can usually find flint and arrowheads at bases of large bluffs, and the reason that is because the quantity of flint would be there, and obviously if that resource was there, that's where they made the arrowheads. And arrowheads come in all different shapes and sizes. You'll find some that were made for birds or small animals, and those are smaller. This obviously is larger. This would probably be for a deer or something of a larger animal. But that's where they made those arrowheads, is where they could find available flint.
And you said that some of the arrowheads, if they were used for war, they would even be shaped differently.
Right. Most of the time, it really depended on what you were trying to achieve. So you may have a larger, even a spearhead could be made out of flint. So there's different uses depending on the size, like I said, of the arrowhead. So it's a really neat little thing to think that a long time ago I'm holding something that was held in another person's hand, and if you think of that, it's kind of mind-blowing, really.
It really is.
As old as they are. So.
And I remember growing up as a kid, finding them. Maybe it wasn't all the time, but
Right.
I feel like it's even more difficult maybe these days to find them than once it was.
You have a lot of different things because of that. There's a lot of environmental changes, availability of places to go find them. It's kind of like the Indians did, or primitive man, is that you'll find some of these in locations that I haven't, or that I did describe, where flint can be found. And basically what that was is they collected that flint, they took it with them, they made arrowheads there. So that's why you can find it in a non-flint environment too. So I think that's a lot of it, is environmental changes and availability to go to those places where they were.
And knowing kind of where some of these camps were.
Exactly. They're all gone with time. You got to think about it. What remnant is there of a camp? You may find some soot on the ground, which indicated still to this day that there was a camp there. Or there were fires there. But you know, it's just one of those things. The passage of time goes by and it gets lost.
Now, these arrowheads in our area made by Choctaw, Chickasaw,
That's right,
Uh,
primarily.
primarily. I was going to ask, were there any other tribes?
Not that I'm aware of in this area.
Okay.
It was mainly just Choctaw and Chickasaw.
Okay.
And of course, they left this area when they, you know, were moved from this area due to relocation on reservations. And that's really not that old, but it's their ancestors that were here that you would find making these before they were even recognized as Choctaw or Chickasaw. You got to think of that. See, it goes back to that. We
That's
think of
true.
it being recent, but it's really not.
Always learning something new here on Next to Nature. That's one thing I love about this segment. All right, thanks, Dr. Long. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you back here next week.